I never thought a fence could feel like a home invasion. But that's exactly what it turned into. No broken windows, no masked guy in the dark, no police lights bouncing off the trees at midnight, just cedar panels, stone columns, and one slow, polished lie standing right where my land used to be. By the time I realized what was happening, the theft was already curing in concrete. I lived just outside a small town in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where people still wave from pickup trucks, where you hear whine through the trees more often than traffic, and where property lines are usually handled with common sense, not lawyers. My place isn't anything fancy: modest house, gravel drive, detached workshop out back. That workshop is where I spend most evenings pretending I still have the patience to restore old tools and build furniture that never comes out quite as straight as I imagined. For years, the lot next to mine sat empty, like it had given up on itself. There was an old shed leaning like a drunk, brush grown so high it looked intentional, and a few rusted fence posts that probably dated back to before I was born. Nobody messed with it. Nobody wanted it. Then one summer, all that changed. The for sale sign went up in June. By August, it was gone. A week later, a black pickup rolled in, followed by 2 SUVs, and out stepped Daniel Mercer. Daniel was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, sharp haircut, clean boots, expensive sunglasses, the kind of guy who looked like he'd never accidentally bought the wrong screws at a hardware store in his life. He walked over smiling, confident, already moving like the ground had made peace with belonging to him. "Hey there," he said, sticking out his hand. "I'm Daniel. Just closed on this lot." "Evan," I said. "Been next door about 15 years. He glanced over the land with that hungry, ambitious look some people get when they're not seeing what is. They're seeing what they plan to impose on it. "I've got some ideas," he said. "Going to clean it up, build something nice." And honestly, I meant it when I told him that sounded good. The place had sat dead too long. I wasn't threatened by progress. I figured maybe the neighborhood would look a little less forgotten. Maybe property values would tick up. Maybe all of us would benefit. What I didn't understand yet was that some people hear the word improvement and think it means taking up more space than they've been given. At first, the work looked normal enough. Brush cleared, debris hauled off, dirt leveled. Then came the heavy equipment, excavators growling at sunrise, flatbeds loaded with stone, pallets of lumber, steel brackets, rebar. Every morning, the quiet broke open with engines, backup beeps, and the clank of metal. It wasn't just construction. It felt like an occupation. Then the fence started. I figured it would be a standard divider, 6-foot wood, practical, boring, forgettable. That's what most of us had. But this thing came in like a statement piece for a man who wanted the whole county to know he'd arrived. Deep holes were dug every 10 or 12 feet. Concrete got poured. Massive stone columns went in first, cut clean, stacked tight, heavy as courthouse walls. Then came thick cedar panels stained a dark rich brown, almost glowing in the late afternoon light. Black iron brackets tied the whole thing together. It was beautiful, I'll give him that. Beautiful in the same way a bank vault is beautiful, expensive, cold, final. And the higher it went, the more I felt this strange pressure in my chest. Not because it leaned. It didn't. Everything was level, precise, professionally built. But somehow it looked too close. Too close to my workshop. Too close to the narrow path I'd walked for years along the edge of my yard. Too close to a place that had always felt open. I told myself it was the height playing tricks on me. A tall fence can make space feel tighter. That's what I said out loud, anyway. But doubt is funny. It doesn't need to shout. It just sits there quietly, like a splinter under the skin, reminding you it exists every time you brush against it. A couple nights later, I mentioned it to my buddy Carl over a beer. "You notice anything weird about that new fence?" I asked. Carl squinted toward the lot, took a sip, shrugged. "Looks expensive." "Yeah," I said. "That's not what I meant." He laughed. "You think he built it on your land or something?" I didn't laugh back, and that told me everything I needed to know. That night I went digging through an old drawer in my office, closing papers, tax records, yellowed folders full of things you swear you'll organize one day. Eventually I found the original survey from when I bought the place. Folded, creased, buried in a manila folder that smelled like dust and forgotten caution. I spread it out on the desk and leaned in. There it was: lines, angles, measurements, notations, the original metal pins marking the corners. And according to that map, my property extended farther out than where Daniel's fence now stood. Not by an inch. Not by one sloppy contractor's margin of error. By several feet. I sat there staring at it, feeling that slow turn inside me, the moment curiosity hardens into dread. Because if that survey was right, then Daniel hadn't just built a nice fence. He'd built a monument on my land. The next morning I called a surveyor named Rick Dalton. Yes, that Rick Dalton, and no, he didn't care about the joke. He sounded like a man who had spent most of his life settling arguments between stubborn people with tape measures and legal language. "I can take a look Friday," he said. "If the original pins are still there, we'll know exactly where the line is." Exactly. That word stayed with me all week. Friday morning came cool and still, one of those end-of-summer mornings where the air feels clean enough to make you honest. Rick pulled up in an old white truck, stepped out, nodded once, and got to work. No small talk, no opinions, just instruments, tripod, clipboard, numbers. He moved slowly around the perimeter, methodical, almost calming to watch. At one corner he crouched, brushed away dirt with his glove, then tapped something with his boot. "Got one," he said. I walked over. Rusted metal pin, half buried, quiet as truth. We found 2 more over the next hour. Each one matched the old survey. Each one confirmed what I was already starting to fear. By early afternoon, Rick stood at the edge of my yard, looking down the length of Daniel's brand-new fence, then back at me. "You want the short version?" he asked. I already knew I wasn't going to like it. "Go ahead." "That fence isn't on your boundary," he said. "Not even close in some spots." "How far?" He narrowed his eyes toward the stone columns. "At the deepest point. About 4 feet inside your property." 4 feet. You say it out loud, and it sounds small. But when it runs the full length of a giant custom fence, 4 feet stops sounding small real fast. Then Rick did the thing that made it impossible to deny. He pulled out bright orange flags and started marking the real property line, one by one, all the way down. And suddenly the picture was brutal. Daniel's elegant fortress of cedar and stone wasn't near my yard. It was in it. Before he left, Rick handed me the report and said, "If this becomes a legal dispute, this will hold up in court." I stood there long after he drove away, looking at those orange flags slicing a straight line through the grass. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would have been easier. What I felt was clarity, and sometimes that's worse. Clarity means you can't hide from what comes next. Daniel noticed the flags 2 days later. It was Sunday afternoon. I was out by the workshop sanding a piece of oak, trying to lose myself in something simple, when I heard gravel crunch under footsteps. "Hey," he called. I looked up. He stood by the fence, sunglasses on, hands in his pockets, casual posture. But there was tension behind it now. "What's with the flags?" he asked. "Had a survey done," I said. I handed him the report. He scanned it fast at first, like speed might change what it said. Then slower. His jaw shifted. Brow tightened. "That doesn't make sense," he said. "It does if the measurements are right," I said. "And they are." He looked from the paper to the fence, then to the flags. "We measured this." "With what?" He hesitated, and that hesitation told me the story before he finished it. "There was an old wooden stake here," he said. "Contractor used that as the reference." I nodded. "That stake wasn't official. The real markers are buried metal pins. Been there for decades." He stared at the nearest flag, like maybe it might blink first. "So what are you saying?" I held his gaze. "I'm saying your fence is on my land." That was the moment it stopped being neighbor talk and became something else. You could feel it in the air. Even the trees seemed to go quiet. He let out a short laugh, but there was nothing funny in it. "You're telling me nobody caught that?" "I'm telling you what the survey says." "That fence cost me a lot of money," he said, voice lower now. "I'm sure it did." Then he asked the question both of us had been avoiding. "So what, you want me to tear it down?" Legally, yes, that was one option. Stone columns ripped out, cedar panels hauled away, thousands and thousands of dollars chewed up because somebody trusted the wrong marker. But life gets interesting right at the moment when being right and being wise stop meaning the same thing. Before I could answer, the twist came from somewhere I didn't expect. 3 days later I stepped outside after hearing voices and saw Daniel standing near the fence with his contractor, a dusty guy in work boots holding a clipboard. They were arguing, not loud, but sharp enough to cut the air. "I'm telling you," the contractor snapped, tapping a post. "We built off the marker that was there." "It was wrong," Daniel shot back. "You based the whole line on a guess." Then they noticed me. The contractor looked embarrassed. Daniel looked tired. Not arrogant, not defensive, tired. like the reality of his mistake had finally landed in full. He motioned me over. "We checked it again," he said. "Your survey's right." That changed everything. Because denial I could fight, bluffing I could fight, but the truth, admitted openly in broad daylight, that forced us into a different kind of conversation. The contractor cleared his throat. "If we'd known, we would have stopped. That's on us." And for the first time, I realized this wasn't some sneaky land grab masterminded in a cigar lounge. It was worse in a way, ordinary carelessness. Assumption. Confidence without verification. The kind of thing that causes half the messes in life. Daniel rubbed his face and said, "So where does that leave us?" I told him we had options. Option 1, tear it all down and rebuild it on the proper line. Option 2, leave it there and let it remain a legal headache for both of us forever. Then I gave him option 3. "Buy the strip," I said. He blinked. "You'd sell it?" "I'd consider it, if the terms make sense." That was the first moment since this whole thing started that I saw something human in him. Not polished, not performative. Just plain relief. It didn't erase anything, but it changed the temperature. Over the next few weeks, lawyers got involved, papers moved back and forth, measurements were refined, county forms drafted, revised, redrafted. Ugly little practical details, the kind no one writes songs about. My attorney told me I had leverage, plenty of it. Said I could force removal, push for more money, make an example out of him if I wanted. And she wasn't wrong. But I kept thinking about what it costs to win the hardest way possible. Not on paper, in life. In sleep. In blood pressure. In the tension of living 20 feet from a man you humiliated. Some victories leave you with the prize and poison the ground under your own feet. So I took the deal. Daniel bought the strip of land where the fence sat, plus a small buffer beyond it. The price was fair, maybe a little better than fair for me, but not predatory. We filed everything with the county. The new line became official. The flags came down. The fence stayed exactly where it was, only now the law had caught up with the wood and stone. And that should have been the end of it. But the real ending, the one that stayed with me, came later. A month after the paperwork went through, Daniel came over one evening while I was out by the workshop. No sunglasses this time. No swagger either. Just a plain look on his face. He said, "I should have checked before I built. I was in a hurry. Thought money solved mistakes faster than caution prevented them." That line stuck with me, because that was the lesson buried under all of it. Not really about fences, not even about land. It was about how easily people let confidence replace proof. How fast convenience starts dressing itself up as truth. How ownership, boundaries, even decency can get blurred when somebody decides assumptions are good enough. And here's the uncomfortable part. If I hadn't felt that little tug in my gut, if I hadn't gone digging through old papers, if I hadn't called Rick, that fence would still be standing there, and over time everybody would have just accepted it. Me included, maybe. That's the thing about losing what's yours slowly. It doesn't always feel like theft. Sometimes it feels like something you got too tired to question. These days, if you drove past our properties, you'd never know any of this happened. His house is finished now, modern, clean, expensive looking, all sharp lines and giant windows. The fence still looks beautiful. We're cordial. We nod. Talk about weather. Trade the occasional dry joke. Nothing dramatic. But every so often I walk that line and run my hand over one of those stone columns, and I think about how close I came to letting silence rewrite ownership. I also think about this. Sometimes karma doesn't arrive with sirens or shouting. Sometimes karma is much quieter than that. Sometimes it looks like a man spending a small fortune to build a wall, only to find out the wall belongs to the one person he underestimated. Sometimes justice isn't destruction. Sometimes the real satisfaction is making the other person pay, legally, cleanly, publicly, and then live forever with the reminder. So now I'm curious, what would you have done? Would you have forced him to tear the whole thing down, every column, every panel, every ounce of pride, just to prove the line mattered? Or would you have done what I did, taken the deal, adjusted the boundary, and turned his mistake into your leverage? Because that's where this gets messy. Did I protect what was mine? Or did I sell it because peace had a price? Tell me what you think in the comments. Where's the line between justice and revenge, between being reasonable and being too forgiving? And if you've ever had a neighbor pull something shady with land, fences, noise, parking, any of it, I want to hear that story too.